Oh, all right. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. My name is Naisha. I am the program manager with the Holding Space Foundation, and I'm so excited if you've joined us before. Welcome back. If this is your first time joining, our ultimate goal is to provide many free resources to you. And today we are here with Chanel Reed. And this is actually Chanel's second time with us. Previously, she was with us on behalf of the program. So today I want to share that Chanel Reed is a dedicated gentrinologist whose expertise embraces the social, biological, and psychological aspects of aging. Grounded in academic research and driven by the deep commitment to service, she blends evidence-based insight with heartfelt community engagement. She has partnered with leading organizations in dementia awareness, advanced care, and end-of-life planning, as well as bereavement support. Chanel's work includes public speaking, award-winning research, and the development of resources tailored to both professional and faith-based caring communities. And Chanel is honored to offer compassionate insight and vital resources to help individuals and families navigate the emotional and spiritual journey of aging with dignity, clarity, and meaning. And again, Chanel, thank you again. Welcome back. And I'm going to turn it right over to you.
Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Chanel Reed, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off my camera because I don't want you to see me read. I have some very vibrant slides, so I would love for you to just pay attention to the slides and to just looking at me. So I'm going to. Can I share right now my
Yeah,
screen?
you should be able to.
Okay, so let's hit share, and let's scroll all the way up, and we hit here. Okay, let's see. You are screen sharing. Let's see what I see. Okay, so here, let's see, there we go. So I'm going to turn off my camera. Don't mind my me, but yes. So I just want you to concentrate on the slides because I just took some time to really put together these slides. So you can concentrate and just look at the slides. So let's do from the beginning. Okay. So what I would love to do, I have been in so many presentations in the past, and usually I have some great questions when somebody is actually doing the slide. But by the time the presentation is over, I have forgotten my question. So if we can, I will pay attention to the time frame. If you want to discuss while I'm going through the slides, I'll be mindful of your time, but I would love to do that so that we can have all of your questions answered while I'm going through. And I don't have that many slides, so I want to have a really engaging conversation, just you listening to me briefly, and then we can share some of our stories. So this is all about not only me, but all about you too as well. Okay, so just like what she said, my name is Chanel Reed. I am a gerontologist, and I want to talk to you this evening about the seasons of aging. So that's caring, that's mourning, and meaningful planning, and everything in between. We are older than we were yesterday, and we're going to continue to age. We have loved ones around us, and we are aging. So, what does that mean, and what does that look like for our lifespan landscape? So, I'm going to go to the next slide. So what you see on this slide right here is me, of course. And in the middle is my grandmother and my mother when I was a young person. And at the bottom, that's my grandmother and me in the middle, as well as my mom. What brought me to this work is my grandmother. My grandmother helped raise me. She was born in 1927. So she was part of the greatest generation. I currently live with an aunt. She is 80. She is part of the silent generation, and both of my parents are still alive, and they are part of the baby boomers generation. And I am an X. So I've had access to three different generations. And I just think that's very unique and very interesting in perspective. So what really brought me with this work is that when my grandmother got sick in 2020, we had to utilize hospice. And I didn't know anything about hospice prior to this. What introduced me to hospice was my aunts and uncles on my father's side. They used it for my other grandmother. So usually hospice is if you have maybe a prognosis of 6 months or less to live, you can utilize this service and you can use it at home or a community. But President Jimmy Carter was on hospice almost 2 years. So even though there's a 6 month diagnosis for you to utilize the service, it's not necessarily so you're not going to pass away. But nevertheless, I just thought their service was so amazing. It really helped our family during the time of need. And I wanted to be part of the gerontology industry just to kind of let people know that you can use this for yourself as well as your family for end of life planning because you do pay for it as part of Medicare and Medicaid. So that's what brought me to this work. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is just a brief disclaimer. I am a mental health coach from Green Heart University, and I'm a gerontologist, which is the study of aging. I study the social part of it, the psychological part of it, and the biological part of it. But I'm not a mental health professional, although I just finished working on the 988 suicide crisis line. So if you need any crisis support, I will provide you with some resources at the end of this so that you or either your loved one can be supported if you need that. On the right, her name is Professor Dr. Stephanie Y. Evans. She's actually from my school, Georgia State University, and she actually created a book about the history of yoga and how Black women have used that in the time to keep for peace and calm and just to be able to keep your wits in about some of the things that's going on. So next slide. The name of my company is Vital Connection Support Systems LLC, and this is just a couple of things that I'm passionate about. We're here to educate for impact, provide anybody resources. The benefit of the education I've been able to receive, I want to share it with the community because sometimes you don't have access to it. So that's part of it. The resources that I hope to provide and will provide hopes to strengthen the community. And I want to advocate for a better future for not only us on the call, but I want you to take these resources back to your family and your community so we could be stronger together. The next slide. I created 8 quick modules that we're going to talk about today. It's not a lot, but just there's a lot in my head. So I put together just a couple of modules and we could just talk about them. If you have any comments, please, I would love to hear what you have to say. But just 8 things we're going to talk about what aging looks like, the healthy and positive aging, what caretaking looks like, as well as the care resources that are available and digital assets, advanced directives, coping with loss, and how to cope with the loss after the initial loss happens. So provide you with just some resources and we'll just have a general conversation today on just what it looks like just throughout the aging process. So here we go. So understanding the aging process, a lot of people don't like to talk about money, but as we are here all now, money makes the world go around, and what you have and what you don't have can make a difference. Now for us, as well as our families, in addition to the people that we love. So I love that picture on the left. I found, looking at your balance, a budget, just assessing what you need and coming up with a system that you can work with for you and your family. The physical aspect of aging is extremely important. I just started a job at assisted living community, and I work with assisted living as well as memory care. And they have an extensive program where they exercise the residents, and we have to keep our physical bodies up so we can do the things that we need to do. Cognitively, it's going to be your social aspects, ladies and gentlemen, your social groups. What do you like to do? And finding people around you that like to do some of the things. My screen name is Chanel Reeds, Reads, and I love to read. So that picture that you see of me on the right is we got a chance to meet the author Daniel Black. He surprised us and came to our book club, and he was like the rock star. So I thought it was one of my favorite meetings. But that's just what I like to do. So, what do you like to do in finding some places that you can do that? And that provides the emotional aspect of it. So the social and the emotional goes together. So just quickly, would anybody like to share anything that they like to do and why they like to do it? If not, I'll move on. But would anybody like to share?
I would. My name is Lee Chapman.
Oh,
I am also with you I read daily. If I wasn't on this call, I actually paused the audio book so I can jump on this. But yeah, you can always catch me with a book. either buying a book or to put on my shelf to read at a later time, or with my Kindle and my phone, all the things. So I try to jump into that to clear my mind.
Oh, how wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Lee. And do you know about the silent reading group? You can go around, you can bring your book, and you can read with other people. They meet all over the world. And you can just bring your book, you can talk to the people there, or you can just read your book for an hour and you can leave. So, silent reading group, you can go online and you can find different chapters. I go at least once a month just to be among other people and to find other selections. So I just love it. But thank you so much for sharing. Okay, well, let me go ahead and click off and I'll go to my next slide. Okay, the next slide. Okay. Healthy and positive aging. So, that is going to be the most important thing, what we just talked about, staying social, finding something that you love to do and finding your tribe. I mean, we have clubs for everything, and I encourage you to be able to do that. Like I said in the very beginning, I just finished 10 months on the 988 suicide crisis hotline. The most people who called that line were struggling with social aspects. They didn't have a community. So I encourage you to find anything you like to do. It could be bird watching, it could be basket weaving. Find you a group so you're not calling and you're stressed out and you need support before you need it. Again, maintaining those healthy habits, what looks right for you when it comes down to a balanced nutrition, exercise, find something fun that you like to do. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to do a half marathon or a marathon, but find something to keep your body moving so that you can maintain that mobility. And it also adds to long-term wellness. These small choices can help you in the long run. And it also, just keep on growing. Anybody that you meet has a story that they can share. And, just get curious and just stay curious. And it will help you definitely with your social as well as your psychological, as well as your biological. Now, on this slide, I do have a couple of resources about mental health. You can either take a screenshot of it now, or I will have some resources for you at the end of this presentation to share with you. Did anybody want to share anything about how they're healthily aging right now? If not, I can move on, but I'll just spend some time if you want to share.
I don't want to seem like I just have something to say for every slide, but since being in this, like my therapist actually sent me the link to this. She literally texted to me and was like, dot, dot, dot. I was like, I'm signing up, I'm signing up. But I've noticed that since I've been caring for my mother full time for like the past 4 years, I've been in therapy heavy. I went from just myself like once a month. Then when I took her on, it started out at first like twice a week, and then we went to twice a month, so I had to do it to keep myself sane because, I was sitting in the car crying or in the closet crying or just, I was just breaking down. It was affecting my health mentally and physically, emotionally. I was just drained. So me jumping into therapy has very much helped me kind of balance everything and not put, I had to find myself in even caring for her, making sure that I didn't lose myself in it. So therapy helped me out a whole lot, a whole lot. Yeah. And I'm actually part of Therapy for Black Girls and the Loveland Foundation. So both of those, yeah, are
That's wonderful.
100.
And thank you for sharing because sometimes you need to hear from your peers that it's okay to do this. The only reason why I even did therapy because my sister had a job and they
Mhm.
wanted them to be mentally healthy and
Mhm.
it didn't hurt her. So I said, okay, if it didn't hurt her,
Right. Oh,
I
well,
can
I
go ahead
started
and
from
do
the
it.
mountaintop. I was like, "Do you have a therapist, girl?" I mean, it's like finding a good hairdresser. I'm like, "You got a therapist? You should talk to my therapist." Like, three of my friends actually go to my therapist now. Like, so yeah, no, I talk about my therapist like that's my homegirl. She saved my life, like literally. So yeah,
That's
she's
so
it.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, it helps. Sometimes talking to people that you don't know necessarily can help and have more of an objective opinion. When people called us on those hotlines, they really kind of told us sometimes their most deepest and darkest secret because it was easier to talk to somebody who was not necessarily so attached to the situation. So definitely thank you so much for sharing. But yes, if you need some support and objective support, these are some resources, but like I said, we'll provide you with some resources at the end of this presentation to help if you need that with your family or you. Okay, the next slide.
Chanel, we
Uh-huh.
actually have someone raising their hand.
Oh,
Elizabeth
please.
hasn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
please.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi. Hello. Yes, I just wanted to comment as you were sharing about the isolation, it occurred to me one of the things I've been really intentional. My dad is 99,
Oh,
decided to age at home, he and my mom, and that's a conversation in itself. And what I realized is that I've been fortunate to bring services into the home because his mobility has changed. And I do that with the intention so that he does have some level of interaction with others, right? It's not just falling on myself or other family members. And I think that that's actually contributed to certainly to his emotional health. He has dementia, Alzheimer's. And so one of the things I'm thankful for is that there are more home services, or at least I've been fortunate in locating them, like physical therapy, OT, even podiatry does home visits now. So those are just some things that came to my mind. It's not just ourselves, right, that need that social support, but our loved ones.
yeah. Well, and that's the great next segue to the next slide. It is the caretaking. So caretaking, care partnering. A lot of people are deciding to age from home because some of the communities, it can be very expensive. I know when I was in my program, some of these programs here in Atlanta can range from monthly fees from anywhere from $3,000. I was told it was $25,000 for one as close in Buckhead that I had to do some training from on Monday. So they can be very expensive and you don't have a nest egg for that. So what does that look like if you want your loved one to age from home and you need support because you're working full time? So that's what this slide is about. Emotional and daily support is definitely important because you need help with the medication, sometimes mobility. If you can provide somebody really helpful to come into the home, there's CNAs, there's LPNs, there's RNs, all type of services. I don't have them on this slide, but it will be a document on if you need any support. You could find it there. Also, referrals. That could be good if you get somebody really good. Hey, do you know anybody? Can you support my loved one? Because caretaking, depending upon the needs of the person, can be very overwhelming. I live with my aunt who's 80 years old. She has Parkinson's, and her youngest brother actually takes care of her. And it is hard because what happens is you remember what the person was. And you have to actually see this new person in front of you. So it's the same person, but your mind goes back to what you remember. Like my aunt that I live with, she's been in my life since I was 14. I'm almost 50 now. So it's hard almost sometimes to see just her decline, but how do I put my emotions aside and be able to help her? And also too, I will say if you can have them help you with the things that they need to help with. The one thing I do see my uncle do, and I know he's coming from a helpful place, but if you can maintain and have them be more independent. So if you're washing clothes, maybe she can fold the clothes. If you're preparing food, maybe she can chop up or he can chop up the vegetables. So try to maintain their independence and what they can do. Be more collaborative than just kind of doing it for them, because I can see that could be an issue too. I have tried to implement a couple of things because I'm a gerontologist, but I think they still see me as a 5-year-old. So that's the thing people don't talk about either. Even though we're all older, there's a hierarchy. They still remember when you were an itty bitty child. So I think that sometimes is the issue we don't talk about, is that when you have an aging parent, well, they will call you on it. They're still mom and dad. So that's what I have kind of run up against. So if you have that, do you have a friend? Do you have a peer? Do they have maybe a sister or brother? If they go to that senior citizen center, can you get Mrs. Jones, Sister Jones? So it's almost creative on how you're going to come up with their care, because they're not necessarily going to listen to the people that love them the most. They're not even going to talk about my auntie's eating habits. That's another slide. But nevertheless, try to find out ways that you can support not only yourself, but the person that you love without going insane. Next slide. Or if
Can
anybody has
I make
anything else
a
to say?
comment there?
Yes,
Can
yes,
I make a
please.
comment?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
I'm sorry, and I am mobile, but I'm so glad I did not miss this call. My name is Valerie,
Okay.
and I am a caregiver for my mom, and um, it is tough because I am the youngest of five and one of two that's local within the city. And when I first relocated to the same city as my parents, it was supposed to be temporary. While I was going through a job reorg, and it was to find the next path, and it was a stopping space. But this happened right at the crux of the pandemic, and my father passed during that time, and so it wasn't a plan, but it kind of happened. And when you talk about that enablement, I so appreciate that comment, because I think because we were grieving, my mom was grieving, I did coddle her uh, because she didn't show her emotion, but I knew she was struggling because her and my dad had a plan. Um, and she did not expect for life to go this way at all. So now I am trying to push her to be more independent, because I found out that I was burning myself out. And I didn't like who I was becoming, because I was very short and very exhausted. And it's hard now. And it's harder because I find that because I'm the only one here, I have virtual support, but it's not always enough. And my mom is very stubborn. So she's able-bodied, and it's like, but I've just coddled her. And now I'm trying to say, okay, I'm going to let you make that appointment. I'll take care of your doctor's appointments. You do this. And it's like, it's taking so much energy. I'm like, maybe I should just go back to doing it myself. So I know I can't do that, but just thank you for calling that out, because I'm guilty.
No, because we do love our loved ones,
Yeah.
and like I said, is people talk about the caregiving kind of like an abstract, but these are people that we love. I mean, so that's the whole
Yes.
thing. You want to do more, but then in a way, if you do that, you do burn yourself out. Like I said, I live with my auntie and my uncle, and I tried to set up systems, but and it's also a different dynamic. I'm the niece.
Yeah.
This is actually his sister, but she helped raise him. So he sees her as a mother
Yeah.
figure. She's older, so she's older
Yes.
for both of us. So they're siblings, and I'm a niece.
Yeah.
So that all comes into play. So that's the hard thing. So like I said, trying to come
Yeah.
up with who that person is going to listen to, that almost, like I said, if it's a peer to peer, so she goes to an adult day center, sometimes we can get them to have somebody come in that's objective, and then
Yeah.
maybe, so just trying to figure out how do you support that person if they're not going to necessarily listen to you right off.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Like I said, this is what it's all about, just hearing and kind of hearing what the obstacles some of us are going through in this journey, because we're going to need support too. So at least we'll have some tools. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay,
Hmm.
so the next slide, let's see here. So that slide, this slide right here is just kind of some resources that I saw in the chat that we can find. You could take a picture of this, but again, it will be a research. This will be a resources sheet that I'll provide at the end. But it is your local ARP. They have some workshops and Powerline. If you have a person that's at home alone and they need some support. So you can take a picture of this. Nevertheless, if you don't, I'll send you some resources. But there's like the National Institute on Aging. There's a national council. I did see something in the chat about caregiving. I actually work with a company called Alter Dementia with Dr. Fayron Epps and her team. This is a support system for loved ones who have dementia, who still want to participate in a religious aspect, and they need just additional support. So, support for the congregation is support for the organization, as well as the person living with dementia, in addition to the caregiver. Compassionate choices, that's what that is too. Um, Often is end of life planning, either for you and your loved one, palliative care, which is just comfort care. Hospice, again, is 6 months and less to live, but again, that can mean different things. So take a picture of this, but these are just a few resources out there that can help you with both your end of life planning in addition to your loved ones. Okay, and then the next slide to me is one of the most important slides. I was at a conference last year. I said, I've got to make sure every time I do a presentation, I got to show everybody this. How many of you have a cell phone, Apple, Android? So you have that. But what people don't necessarily realize, if you go, so like take for instance, I am actually at a school right now. If I want to log into Gmail, they ask you, okay, hey, we don't know if you're the right person. Who are you? You have to use your cell phone to actually be able to put a code in to get that particular access to that email. What if something happens to you? Do you know if you can give it to somebody that you love? Are you familiar with their terms of policies? Often we sign up for all of this stuff. We just click and click because we need access to the stuff. But there has been cases when people have needed their loved ones' accounts and they couldn't get in. That actually happened to me. 10 years ago, we lost an uncle. We didn't have any of his resources. He had just bought a new computer. We didn't have the sale. We didn't have no passcode. We didn't have anything. Luckily, there was a statement that came to the house about his insurance policies, and we've had some money to be able to put him away. However, they don't send out statements anymore. When's the last time you got a statement? It's all digital. You need to be able to have the password to get into the account. So if you don't hear anything from me, please, figure out maybe a digital management system in which you can figure out your passcodes, who you want to have it. Like think about Facebook. Like how many people that you maybe know who've passed on. And now you get these reminders every year that, hey, happy birthday, this person's gone. So, Facebook has a legacy prompt. Many of us have online businesses. What do you want for that stuff to happen when somebody passes on? So all of this is important, ladies and gentlemen. So if you can, please take a picture of this. Think about, who you want people to have access to your things if you're gone, because this is extremely important. There's a couple of celebrities that I used to follow. I still can look at their stuff today because there was nothing set up to say, hey, if something happens to me, I want them to be able to take it over or take it down. I'm definitely curious about, does anybody have any stories to share, anything they want to mention about this particular important slide?
Yeah, this is Dawn. I'll share. I mean, so my mom is 81 and um we decided my brother lives in the same town as my mom, but I live in they're in California and I'm in DC. And she is not very tech savvy. And so what I started doing and we were having these instances where she would forget to pay a bill because she's old school. She wants to write a check. She would go in sometimes and pay her bills. And then she would forget. And so, and then all of a sudden, it's compounded, and then, I'm trying to address it on the back end. So, creating online accounts that, with the passwords, and I'm the one who's sort of checking those accounts, but I have that written down, and they have that information as well, my mom and my brother. But my name is on her bank accounts. I set up online banking accounts in order to check her account. And I also, as you were sharing, I thought of this piece around she had an incident where, she was scammed in that, someone called, and, of that generation, if someone calls that says they are a professional, you believe them, right? And so she gave the last four digits of her social. Um, I put identity protection in place afterwards, but I also I put a freeze on her account, her credit. So created an account with Experian and put a freeze on her account so
Yes.
that, and no one can, and so just things like that too that I thought of, as you were sharing about
Mhm.
just protecting them because they are preyed upon,
Yes.
because they are seniors, and they
Yes.
are and of their generation, they're trusting.
Yes.
This is new in terms of this onslaught of faking that you're the IRS or you're, you know, and we also have this policy where I say, um, don't answer the phone for any number you don't real know. They will leave a message if they're really for you, and you and I talk about it.
Yep.
And our stock line is, I'm like, if you can't remember anything else, did you say, oh, I have to talk about this with my daughter, and I'll circle back with you,
Yep.
just to protect her.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful journey. And thank you so much for sharing because there are scams, but also scams for us. I know I don't have any children, so I know I bank with two banks. And I was able to add my brother and sister to a beneficiary to one, but the other one needed certain documentation. So letting your people know that they're actually beneficiaries, because if something happens to any of us on the call, the banks are not going to call. So you know what? Your loved one's gone. You need this money, right? They're not gonna have that kind of conversation because the banks are in it to collect the premiums, not to pay them out. So having that conversation about who's the beneficiary. I know when I think my grandmother on my father's side passed away, and nobody knew who the beneficiary was, so everybody had to kind of call. So, so please have these conversations because each company has their different ways on how to do this. And like I said, many of us have online accounts. We have actually created businesses online. So if something had to happen, who is your business partner? Who do you want to have this information? So please have these conversations with people so nobody's left scrambling because it can get really messy. You already got to deal with the grief of losing that person, and now you got to find stuff. And as we've said, once we're older, we have loved ones that lived in houses 30, 40, 50 years. Trying to find that one document, it could be a nightmare. I live in a house now. Oh my goodness, something happened to my aunt. I just cringe. But you can't get them to throw anything away. A lot of them are children under the pressure. That's a whole nother conversation. We could be here all night. So please try to talk to your loved ones. Get somebody to talk to them to get this done, ladies and gentlemen. Next slide. Now, the next slide is kind of it triggers trigger warning, but September this month is a National Suicide Awareness Prevention Month. Unfortunately, we are losing our loved ones, actually African American and Black people, to suicide. But this was a slide from a company called 6 Feet Over. And they actually help if somebody is lost to suicide. They actually help with a variety of financial aspects. So when you lose someone, not only naturally, but if you lose someone somebody to suicide. These are just some of the unexpected causes that you could think about. So these could be used for the natural causes, usually funerals, anywhere from 7,000 to 12,000, just depending upon, and cremation and memorial services. But these are the resources or just the things that you might have to face if you lose someone to suicide. So this slide is not meant to trigger you, but this is just to be mindful if you lost someone or you know somebody was lost to suicide, just kind of what they're dealing with, not only the financial impacts, but the emotional impact, because there's still stigma about it. And losing to someone to suicide is not treated like if you lost somebody to cancer, dementia. It's a different type of loss. So I just wanted to show you this because this is kind of a snapshot, not only from the emotional aspect of it, which is definitely very tragic, but just the financial aspect of it at all. So anybody wanted to make a comment about that before I go to the next slide? Okay, if not, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is what we just talked about. Putting those documents in place. So advanced directives, and that's what it is. You're advancing and you're coming up with documentation that you want your loved ones to have if something happens to you. Planning equals peace, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't leave this for your family to do. And I have these 3 pictures of people who actually passed on without having access to wills. Aretha Franklin, she passed away without a will. She actually had a special adult needs son. She didn't put anything in writing for him, for her, but for that person. I think it was a son. Dr. King, unfortunately, no, he did not foresee that he was going to be killed, but he died too without a will. And he had small children at the time with Coretta. So the special case with Bob Marley, I went to Jamaica last year. By the time before you even get off the gate to even greet you, they playing his music, everything. It was so jarring because the man's not here. He's been gone for a long time, but they've been able to revolutionize that whole island with just his song, his likeness. And when he died, he didn't put anything in writing. But I'm sure his family was strapped for cash, or they had to use his intellectual property. Now, the kicker was all of the excursions, we weren't going to see his museum. I asked, I said, what is his museum on the excursion? Oh, no. But they planned the man, oh, yeah, pajama. No, he's nowhere to be. It's just, please put something in writing, ladies and gentlemen. I was just kind of really shocked because the way they had it set up in Jamaica, you would think he was still here with his music, his likeness. And, this is what happens when you don't put anything in writing. You allow other people, the state, the national state, to be able to say what they want. So on the document, the resources I will give you, I'll provide you with some free resources. Compassionate Choices has a free will. They also have a advanced directive specifically for dementia. Is called a dementia advanced directive. If you think that your loved one might need that, they can put their wishes written down before they need it, or we could use that in the future. But they have a lot of documents, a lot of templates that you can use. But the bottom line is just start to have the conversation. There is a website called the Conversation, and trying to have you to have prompts and how it looks like. I want to say most of us, especially African American Black people, I think we think we're on that raptured up plan. But ladies and gentlemen, only 4 people were raptured up, and that was the Old Testament. We can't be on that raptured up plan. We can't put that in writing. We have to plan. So please, for goodness sakes, definitely plan. And anybody want to make any comment about this slide or anything that's happened to them and their family that they would like to share?
Can I make a comment? This is Alicia.
Sure.
I just wanted to say this has been very helpful. So thank you. But both of my grandparents actually passed within this past year.
My condolences.
Thank you so much. But before they died, probably about 5 to 10 years ago, they sat down with one of my cousins and pretty much planned out everything at the end. So from everything from they purchased their burial plots, they did their obituaries, they got all their paperwork together. So when they did pass, it was, of course, a sad time, but because they did that in advance, I saw that it took a lot of the burden off of my mom and my aunt. So I would highly recommend sitting down with your loved one, and it's a very difficult conversation. Of course, they didn't want to have it, but by them doing that in advance, it helped a lot with even us as the grievers. It took a lot of load off of us because they got to write down what they wanted and what their wishes were. So I just wanted to
Yes.
put that
But
out
thank
there.
you so much for sharing that. Like I said, we're already going to be losing the person and we've got to grieve their loss. And it's just these documents make it a little easier. And no, it's not easy to talk about, but the believers on this call, when there's no plan, the people perish. So we got, if we're following this book, we have to use some of the messages in it. I mean, it was there for a reason. So, if we can, I know it's not, not ideal, but none of us, we can't, for people who are believers, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to pass on. But that's the next step. So if you could leave something behind, and it's also, keeping Black wealth on. I mean, that's a lot of reasons why Black wealth is being disappeared. Yes, we know some of the historical issues, but do you really want the state to have your stuff that you've worked so hard for? I mean, so I think those are the things that we have to consider, not only for our loved ones, but for us too. What do we want? Who do we want to have our stuff when that time comes? So it's definitely important. So definitely thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm gonna go to the next slide.
Elizabeth, go
So,
I
ahead. Yeah.
go ahead, please go ahead.
just wanted to just chime in, Chanel, because as I was listening to the other comment, and you're also helping to underscore what's needed. My belief is that it's not just for our loved ones, it's for ourselves, and not to wait and think that it's a matter for older adults. My belief deeply is that all of us need a healthcare proxy. All of us should want to be able to figure out how we can kind of move, towards planning, because it's something that needs to have multiple conversations. So for myself and setting up my parents with their trust, it also forced me to accelerate some of my thinking and planning with my three adult children. And I think and it's a good thing. I've had time to adjust to the conversation around, death, around, handling assets. And often we think you have to have $1 million in order, for it to be meaningful. But my point is that, if it's not written down, it doesn't count.
Yes, yes. And thank you so much for sharing. Again, that kind of reinforces the next slide. Yes, it has to be written down because that's what the state has. If, like life insurance policy, if we're not the right beneficiary, we don't know who's the beneficiary, they're not going to release the money. So what happens is all of these companies have all their ducks in a row. That's why they have us do the terms of conditions and all of this stuff. They have legalized to make sure that they're protected. Like I said, I have to make sure not only again putting the beneficiaries there, ensuring that your beneficiaries know. With also the same with accounts. Do you know some companies they get snatched up by other companies? There's a new name, it's a new business, it's a new account number. You have to stay on top of this stuff because that's how they get you. I know one of my policies, I think they were bought by another company, and I had to call because you can't do some of the stuff online to say, well, hey, can you send me a statement? Oh, we don't know what you're talking about. So it, the waters become very murky because again, the ideal is to keep the companies want to keep the money. So that's why having a slide, this ripple effect, because it is a ripple effect. It's the emotional aspect, it's the physical aspect, but it's also the financial aspect. You're going to need that extra money to support yourself, if you want to take a couple of days off. Most companies don't have bereavement pay. I just started a new job and it's only immediate family members. Well, what if your aunt raised you? What if your granddaddy raised you? What if you don't want to come back to work? If you only have 3 days, they're going to pay for. And if you had a policy that your loved one actually going to allocate to you, that would be time that you could use to tie up their estate or tidy up their estate. But if you don't know about it, you have to rush back to work. So it's really just those long-term things that we want to prepare ourselves as well as our loved ones. And, just and actually reviewing it. Sometimes reviewing reviewing it every, so often to ensure, because like I said, these companies are being bought up. So like I remember let me see, we're in 2025 now. I used to work at Wachovia. Well, Wachovia was 24 years ago, so now it's Wells Fargo. So again, these companies are getting swallowed up by the big guys. So again, that policy might have changed. It might be the same, but do you know where the policy is? You don't know, do you know the name of the company and the account number? So it gets very murky. So we can start having these conversations now with our loved ones as well as ourselves, find those documents, calling the company. Sometimes they have online portals, sometimes they want you to actually physically print it out, send it back to them. They don't make it easy, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't want you to pay out the money. So you want to make sure that you and your loved ones are protected. And while you're going through this, again, faith can help you, family and friends can help you. And if you are a person of faith, they can help you as well. But again, if you want to stay in the driver's seat to some of these things while you're going through losing your loved one. So did anybody have anything to say before we go to the next slide?
I can share. This is Johanna. I was just going to share that there are some very helpful templates that I used online some years ago to create a power of attorney and medical power of attorney document, and that they're separate things because I had to create a legal power of attorney document and then a separate medical power of attorney. At the time, I didn't have the ability to go to an attorney to do that. Thankfully, the person, a supervisor I was working with, had a legal background, was an attorney before, even though he wasn't working in that position then, and he read over the document for me. But I did use that. And at the time, my mom was quite early in her dementia journey, so she was still able to sign the form. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Also saw in the chat, just be mindful that healthcare proxies, they do vary slightly from state to state, but you can find some templates and again, refer to your attorney to see. But like I said, just start the process, being aware that those documents are available. Like I said, getting them signed prior because, you don't want a matter of incompetence to come in. I mean, there's so many things that you can run up against if you don't necessarily, have the documentations. Because again, the companies are kind of relying on you not to have your ducks in a row. So that's why, I really wanted to make sure that when I got out of my program, I tell everybody here, especially my community, because I want to make sure that people know when they have the tools that they need, because this is legacy building and wealth at stake, not only from an emotional standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and we need to hold on to as much as we can. Next slide. So when you do lose a loved one, it is emotional. We did talk about the financial, and it also can have some physical and spiritual holes. What I just want to make sure that you know is that your grief journey is unique and it has no timeline. Don't let nobody say, well, you should be over it. That's not necessarily their role to tell you that. You need to be able to grieve in the way you need to grieve, and you know the relationship that you have with that loved one. So there's Grief Share is a resource that you can have. Divorce care, if divorce is something that has happened. There's also My Grief Angels. I just thought about that. When I was on the 988 suicide crisis line, that's a free support system online. It's called My Grief Angels. If you can drop that in the chat, that'd be amazing. But they not only help with grief of parents, grief of siblings, there's a support group for all of the type of grief. A lot of people don't realize pet grief, sibling grief, they have different support systems because often when you lose someone, you really need to be around people who have lost that person. Like I remember a young man calling our hotline and he had just lost a parent and he was devastated. And I could not necessarily relate to him because both of my parents are still here. So sometimes you need that support person. If you're going through a divorce or any different phases of divorce, if you still have married friends, they can empathize and they can be compassionate, but they're not there. So getting, again, your tribe to support you in addition to the people that you love that can support you can be very helpful in your journey. But again, we'll make sure you have some resources just for that grief journey because it can be definitely a different timeline. And when we talk about grief, Some of you are familiar with the 5 stages of grief by the psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but there were also 2 additional ones added. So when you're dealing with grief, these are just 7 that they've identified, but there are going to be other ones too. They're not in order. It's just these are some of the things that you could think about experiencing, or you might experience when you have lost someone. And grief, again, it could be that person's no longer here, or you're dealing with them leaving and you're seeing it, which goes to the next slide. There's different types of grief. So anticipatorial grief, that would be more like your dementia. You love your person. You remember, what stage of life they were in, and you're watching them pass on in front of your very eyes. That could be anticipatory grief. Another grief is disenfranchised grief. That is the loss of a pet. That could be suicide. That could be grief. Grief that's not necessarily openly acknowledged. It could be stigmatized. So that's why My Grief Angels would be a good place to start, or just even do some Google searching to make sure that you have the grief that you need, support that you need, because it can be very challenging when you lose somebody that you can't necessarily share that with. And complicated grief, it could just be a variety of things. Sometimes people lose a lot of things in a lot of significant time. It could be your grandparents passed away. It could be a child passed away. You lost your job. You got divorced. So complicated grief. So you just need support around that. So finding the right support system, or somebody who can say the right things to you at the right time, is definitely going to be very vital to your healing process. So please keep that in mind. Just wanted to make sure that you're aware that September, which is this month, is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Sadly, we are losing our young people as well as middle-aged to older people to suicide for a variety of reasons. If you want me to come back and talk about that, I can. But nevertheless, I came back last year. We talked about the Let's program. I am on the board of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So this is something that's near and dear to my heart as far as the education. But we just want to keep I want to keep you and your loved ones safe. So just a couple of brief resources that you can see on the screen, but also I will provide some resources for you. This is just in terms of losing someone to suicide, there are some traditional models that you can use towards a general public, but most of the time it's cultural. So the way you look at losing someone, or somebody having suicide desire, is really cultural, because it could be hidden and it could be overt. So when we talk about that, just be mindful that the traditional models out there are more for the dominant group, but there are different ways to look at how you need to look for the signs to keep you or your loved one safe. And the next slide is just some resources on if you want to know more about how to keep yourself safe and your loved ones safe. There's books, there's podcasts, as well as documentaries. Again, you don't have to write all of this stuff down now, because I will provide you some resources at the end. Again, another resource slide, just different resources. There's actually an organization specifically for people who are losses of suicide survivors. The 988 Suicide Crisis Line is always there. Now Matters Now is a really good website if you don't feel emotionally safe at the time, but it has a lot of good resources that you can use based on the DBT. It's self-care, confidence. There's a couple of resources like cold water method, breathing method, just to keep yourself safe and your loved ones safe, that you could use at the time. But again, these resources will be provided to you towards the end. And this is the last slide. So again, my name is Chanel Reed. I am a gerontologist, and the name of my company is Vital Connection Support Systems. But this slide is really important to me. So in that toolbox, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ensure that you keep compassion, empathy, support, and respect, and active listening, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones. That picture right there is 2 girlfriends that I've known since I was in high school. So that is the importance of keeping people that you meet along your journey of life, keeping someone that can hold your hand or you can go through life with them. And at the bottom is a very special slide. I met these two gentlemen at a suicide conference a couple of years ago. The gentleman, the black guy, his name was Kevin Baritha. He was really having a hard time a couple of years back, and he thought he was going to take his life on the Golden Gate Bridge. But for 92 minutes, the white guy, his sergeant, Kevin Briggs, listened to him for 92 minutes about his journey and his struggles. And he was able to convince Kevin to come back over the rail. And now, throughout the year and throughout the years, they have been champions in suicide prevention, awareness, and education. So, got a chance to meet both of them. And they are doing and causing just providing resources and making sure that people stay safe and what to look for. So I want to share that with you. I can stop sharing and then we can have some conversation.
All right, so we have about, 4 minutes left. If anyone has any questions or comments for Chanel, she is here. And I'm also going to drop her information in the chat, but as well as you will receive that resource sheet as she's mentioned a couple of times. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, please come off camera or put it in chat. Yeah, Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. I am Jasmine. Sorry, I've been driving, so I couldn't come on camera right now. But I wanted to revisit the slide that talked about the passwords and the account management and such. I too, similar to Don, who spoke up, I have one of my father. He has gotten scammed before, and so now he is so afraid of putting his password anywhere online, etc. And I was looking into maybe like a Google Drive document where he could keep his passwords. And I don't live in the same state as him, so places to share information. But of course, if someone were to hack into his Gmail or whatever, it would be found. I'm wondering if folks have found any successful ways or management systems to use that are very protected or encrypted so that our loved ones can share information that is very sensitive with us.
Any data, so you're looking for maybe a digital management system?
Yes, or password keepers or things like that. I have some that I use for work, but I'm wondering if there's maybe if you have even heard of something like this for parents or elders specifically to keep their passwords safe.
Well, I found, like I said, on the research guide that I'm going to give you, there was an article and it talked about, and it was a lot, 24 different companies you can check out to see, what would work for your loved one. They would have to feel comfortable with it. But, unfortunately, we have to use these tools now. I mean, again, my 69-year-old auntie, uncle won't even get on a computer. I mean, so we have that, and like I said, once you've been scammed, it's harder. So maybe, look at that list and see maybe if you can have a conversation with him and see maybe if you can journey together would he be comfortable in using. But yeah, putting that down. And also, they also make you change your password so often too, which makes it more complicated. But if you could, possibly, and then again, check out those terms of conditions too, because sometimes they'll let you add people and sometimes there's different stipulations on how to add. Like your my chart for your loved ones, if you are interested in their health information, how do you get around what is it, the HIPAA? So there's a lot of things they've put in place that we have to start doing our investigation work, before we really need these resources.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This was a great session.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and Elizabeth shared something very similar. She said she appreciated the chance to hear from each other as caregivers and reinforce best practices. All right, and Dawn, we will wrap up with you, okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to just pass on, and I agree. This has been just helpful in being in community. Uh, just knowing other folks are dealing with similar things and come up with different hacks and resources. So that's just been great. I just wanted to share too that I have found helpful if you are in an area that has Kaiser and your loved one is a part of Kaiser, you can create a caregiver account. And I did that. My brother, unfortunately, he's older. He was in the hospital last year, is when I sort of discovered that. But as a care, I can set up a caregiver account and link both to my brother's account and my mother's. And I'm able to communicate with her doctors, message when we first had some memory issues that we're on a journey now of figuring out, what kind of dementia she might have. It started from there, but I was able to freely email them. I can get her blood work. I can see it. So if you are in a jurisdiction that has a Kaiser, I highly, highly recommend, and your loved one has Kaiser, to create a caregiver account.
Yes, like I said, yeah, just all of these helpful tools. And like I said, lean on, your support system because again, the only reason why I was able to even use the hospice is because I had loved ones to vouch for their services. Usually people won't necessarily even consider it unless we hear from somebody that we really, really care for and trust. So these conversations are definitely important. And again, if your loved one's not listening to you, try to figure out how to identify someone that they will listen to so we can put these documents and have these conversations before we really need to have them.
Chanel, thank you again for giving us your wonderful, wonderful resources. And I will send out the recording with the resource sheet. I learned so much and I just agree with everything because I've experienced this myself. And I think that is time for us to wrap up. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who shared their testimonies as well.
Yes, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, feel